What if everything we think we know about ancient engineering is wrong? Picture this: the Great Pyramid of Giza, standing tall for over 4,500 years, its blocks cut and placed with laser-like precision. No cranes, no power tools, no blueprints as we know them today. Yet somehow, these ancient builders achieved what modern architects still struggle to replicate. How? That's the question that sends shivers down the spine of every historian and engineer who dares to dig deeper. Across the globe, from the jungles of South America to the deserts of Egypt, civilizations we often label as primitive left behind structures that defy logic. Massive stones weighing hundreds of tons were transported across impossible distances, fitted together so tightly you can't slip a sheet of paper between them. Temples built to withstand earthquakes that topple modern skyscrapers, water systems so advanced they put today's plumbing to shame. These aren't just relics of the past, they're puzzles waiting to be solved, whispering secrets about knowledge lost to time. This journey isn't just about stone and mortar. It's about the minds behind these marvels, the thinkers, the dreamers, the innovators who looked at a mountain and saw a monument. Were they gifted with forgotten techniques? Did they possess insights into nature's laws that we're only beginning to grasp? As we explore 30 of these ancient construction mysteries, you'll start to see history not as a linear progression, but as a web of brilliance stretching back further than we ever imagined. So buckle up. By the end of this video, you might just question whether we've truly advanced as much as we like to think. One of the most baffling architectural mysteries left by ancient builders lies in the polygonal masonry of the Andes. Walk up to the walls of Sacsayhuaman or the foundations of Machu Picchu, and you'll find stones, some weighing over 100 tons, cut into jagged, irregular shapes, yet fitted together with such perfection that the seams vanish. No mortar, no gaps, just an impossible jigsaw puzzle carved from solid rock. Modern engineers have tried for decades to replicate this technique, but even with diamond-tipped tools and computer modeling, they can't match the precision. How did they do it? Theories range from the practical to the extraordinary. Some researchers suggest the Inca used a system of trial and error, painstakingly grinding each stone against its neighbor until the fit was flawless. Others propose they had access to a now-lost plant-based solvent that could soften rock, allowing them to mold it like clay. Then there are the more speculative ideas, like sound waves or even extraterrestrial guidance, though these lack any concrete evidence. What we do know is this: the builders understood something about stone, friction, and seismic stability that modern science is still unraveling, the real shocker. These walls were designed to last. Peru sits on one of the most active earthquake zones on the planet. Yet while Spanish colonial buildings crumbled centuries ago, Inca masonry stands unshaken. The secret might be in those irregular joints. Unlike straight-edged blocks which crack under stress, the interlocking polygonal stones shift and settle during tremors, then snap back into place like a 3D shock absorber. It's a level of earthquake engineering that wasn't rediscovered until the 20th century. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't how they built these walls, but why they chose such an agonizingly difficult method. Was it simply to showcase their mastery, or did they possess knowledge we've yet to decode? Every time a new section of Inca masonry is uncovered, it chips away at our assumptions about what ancient civilizations were truly capable of. Standing in the vast desert of Giza, the Great Pyramid doesn't just tower over the landscape, it defies the very laws of time and human limitation. Its base, spanning over 13 acres, is aligned to true north with an error margin of just 3/60ths of a degree. To put that in perspective, modern architects using satellite-guided tools would struggle to match such precision. But here's the kicker: the pyramid was built over 4,500 years ago, long before the invention of the magnetic compass, let alone GPS. So how did an ancient civilization, without so much as a protractor, achieve what we'd consider a technological marvel even today? One prevailing theory points to the stars. The ancient Egyptians were master astronomers, tracking celestial bodies with meticulous care. Some researchers believe they used the constellation Ursa Minor, or the so-called indestructible stars, as a reference point. By observing the circular motion of these stars around the north celestial pole, they could have calculated true north with astonishing accuracy. Others suggest a simpler method: shadow casting. The so-called Indian circle technique involves marking the shadow of a vertical rod at different times of day, then bisecting the angle to find north. But even this method doesn't fully explain the pyramid's near-perfect alignment, especially when you consider the sheer scale of the structure. A tiny error in measurement at ground level would have been magnified exponentially by the time the builders reached the pyramid's apex. Then there's the mind-bending precision of the pyramid's corners. Each forms a near-perfect right angle, with deviations of less than 2 centimeters across a base length of 230 meters. This level of exactness suggests the Egyptians possessed not just advanced geometry, but also tools of remarkable sophistication. Some archaeologists speculate they used leveled trenches filled with water to create a perfectly flat reference plane, or perhaps even primitive theodolites to measure angles. Yet no such instruments have ever been found in the archaeological record, leaving us with more questions than answers. What makes this mystery even more compelling is the pyramid's relationship to other ancient sites. If you draw a line along its diagonal, it intersects almost perfectly with the Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek, another ancient wonder known for its megalithic stones. Coincidence, maybe, but when you add the pyramid's alignment to the cardinal directions, its precise dimensions encoding mathematical constants like pi, and its placement mirroring the stars of Orion's belt, it's hard not to wonder if we're missing a bigger picture. Were the Egyptians working from a lost blueprint of cosmic proportions, or did they inherit knowledge from an even older, more advanced civilization? Every new survey of the pyramid seems to deepen the mystery, proving that some secrets of the ancient world refuse to be solved. Now imagine standing on the windswept slopes of Easter Island, staring up at one of those towering Moai statues, some standing as tall as a 4-story building, their hollow eyes gazing inland as they have for centuries. The sheer scale of these stone giants is staggering, but what truly boggles the mind is how they got there in the first place. Carved from volcanic rock at a quarry miles inland, these megaliths, some weighing more than 80 tons, were somehow transported across jagged terrain without wheels, pulleys, or draft animals. It's a logistical nightmare that would give modern engineers pause, yet the Rapa Nui people accomplished it centuries ago with nothing but ingenuity and muscle. For decades, the prevailing theory involved log rolling. Experiments in the 1990s showed teams could move replica Moai by rocking them side to side on wooden sledges, essentially walking the statues forward in a laborious shuffle. But here's the catch: Easter Island's sparse vegetation makes it unlikely there were ever enough trees to lay down continuous tracks. Oral traditions handed down by the islanders tell a different story altogether. They speak of the Moai moving with mana, a spiritual energy channeled by priests or chiefs that allowed the statues to glide effortlessly across the land. While modern science dismisses this as myth, it raises an intriguing question. Could there be a kernel of truth hidden in these legends? recent archaeological work hints at a possible middle ground. Deep grooves carved into ancient roads suggest the statues might have been moved upright, pivoted on ropes in a rhythmic swaying motion that made them appear to walk from a distance. This method would explain why so many moai were found toppled face down along transport routes. A single misstep could send an 80-ton colossus crashing to the ground. But even this theory doesn't account for the sheer stamina required. Moving just one moai this way would demand the coordinated effort of dozens of people for weeks, all while navigating steep inclines and rocky outcrops. What's often overlooked is the sophistication behind these operations. The Rapa Nui didn't just move stones, they engineered roads with precise drainage channels to prevent erosion. And they positioned each statue's center of gravity so precisely that tilting them forward required minimal force. Some researchers even speculate they used a system of counterweights, leveraging the statue's own mass against them. Yet despite these plausible explanations, no single theory fully reconciles with all the evidence. Broken moai litter the island's interior like abandoned experiments, as if the builders were refining their technique with each attempt. Perhaps the most haunting detail isn't how they moved the statues, but why they took such risks in the first place. In a society with no written language, the moai weren't just art, they were living repositories of ancestral power, their backs turned to the sea as if guarding the island's soul. Every ounce of effort poured into their transport was an act of devotion, a testament to human determination that echoes across the centuries. And that's the real mystery here, not the mechanics of moving stone, but the unshakable belief that drove people to achieve the impossible. The Pantheon in Rome has stood under the same unreinforced concrete dome for nearly 2,000 years, a feat modern engineers still can't replicate. While our concrete bridges crumble after decades and skyscrapers require constant maintenance, Roman harbors submerged in seawater for millennia grow stronger with time. The difference, a forgotten recipe that turns weakness into strength. Modern labs only cracked the code in 2017, discovering that the Romans mixed their concrete with volcanic ash and lime, creating a chemical time capsule. When seawater seeps into microscopic cracks, it triggers a reaction that forms new minerals, essentially giving the concrete a self-healing ability. What's baffling isn't just the sophistication of this ancient material, it's how the knowledge vanished so completely. Roman engineers documented their techniques meticulously, yet medieval builders reverted to inferior mixes. Some historians blame the fall of the empire itself. As trade routes collapsed, access to key ingredients like volcanic ash from Pozzuoli became impossible. Others suggest the recipe was a guarded secret, lost when master builders died without apprentices. But the most compelling theory, the Romans themselves might not have fully understood the chemistry. They knew their concrete worked, but not why, like a baker following a family recipe without knowing how yeast functions. Today, scientists are racing to adapt this ancient tech for the modern world. Imagine earthquake-resistant buildings that seal their own fractures, or underwater tunnels that grow more resilient with each passing year. The challenge lies in scaling the process. Roman concrete took decades to reach full strength, a timeline incompatible with today's fast-paced construction. Yet researchers in Utah have already made breakthroughs by substituting coal fly ash for volcanic material, proving that history's greatest engineering secrets might still hold solutions for our future. The real lesson here isn't just about chemistry, it's about humility. For centuries, we assumed progress meant leaving the past behind. But the Pantheon whispers a different truth. Sometimes the most advanced innovation is the one we forgot. Deep inside the Virabhadra temple in Lepakshi, India, a single stone pillar has left visitors and experts alike rubbing their eyes in disbelief. Unlike the other columns supporting the temple ceiling, This one dangles just a finger's width above the floor, perfectly balanced, seemingly suspended by nothing but air. For over 500 years, pilgrims have slid cloth beneath it as a test, and to this day, the fabric passes cleanly from one side to the other, no cracks. No sagging, just pure, impossible defiance of gravity. Theories about how this hanging pillar works range from the scientific to the spiritual. Structural engineers have spent decades analyzing its design, noting that the pillar isn't entirely detached. It connects to the ceiling at the top, forming a cantilever. But here's the catch: the angle and weight distribution shouldn't allow for this kind of stability. Without modern materials or computer modeling, the temple's builders somehow calculated stresses and forces with a precision that still eludes today's experts. Some suggest they used a counterweight system hidden within the pillar itself, while others propose the entire temple was designed as a harmonic structure, with vibrations canceling out gravitational pull. Then there are the legends. Local lore claims the pillar was left unfinished by the divine architect Vishwakarma himself, a celestial signature to remind mortals of his presence. Others whisper that the pillar once stood firmly on the ground until a British engineer, skeptical of its purported miracle, tried to dislodge it, only to shift it slightly and disrupt the equilibrium forever. Whether myth or mishap, the stories add layers of intrigue to an already baffling phenomenon. What makes this pillar truly extraordinary isn't just its suspension, it's the context. The Virabhadra temple is a masterpiece of Vijayanagara architecture, covered in intricate carvings that seem to float across every surface. Yet amid this artistic splendor, the hanging pillar stands as a quiet testament to a different kind of genius. While modern buildings rely on steel beams and reinforced concrete, this single stone column has endured earthquakes, monsoons, and centuries of human curiosity without faltering. Perhaps the most humbling realization is how much we still don't understand. For all our advances in physics and engineering, a 16th century stonemason's secret remains just out of reach. Was it a fluke, a stroke of luck, or proof that ancient builders possessed insights we've yet to rediscover? The hanging pillar doesn't give up its secrets easily. It simply hangs there, silent and serene, challenging us to keep questioning what we think we know. High in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, the ruins of Baalbek hide one of archaeology's greatest unsolved puzzles, the Trilithon. 3 colossal limestone blocks, each stretching 64 feet long, 14 feet high, and weighing more than 800 tons, form the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter. To put that in perspective, each stone equals the weight of 2 fully loaded Boeing 747 jets. Even today, only a handful of cranes on Earth could lift them, yet somehow, 2,000 years ago, they were hoisted 20 feet in the air and slotted together with the precision of a Swiss watch. The logistics are mind-bending. The quarry where these megaliths were cut lies nearly a mile away, uphill. No wheeled vehicles from that era could have transported such mass without disintegrating. Some researchers propose they were dragged on wooden sledges lubricated with olive oil, but experiments show this method would require the combined strength of 40,000 men, a mobilization that would have left historical records. Others suggest a system of counterweighted levers, similar to how the Egyptians might have moved pyramid stones, but the sheer scale of the Trilithon makes even that theory feel inadequate. Then there are the wilder hypotheses. Ancient astronaut theorists point to local legends describing the stones being made light by chanting priests, hinting at lost acoustic or vibrational technology. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss this as fantasy, but they can't ignore the eerie precision of the Trilithon's placement. The blocks fit so tightly that their seams resist even the thinnest knife blade, a feat requiring engineering tolerances measured in millimeters. How do you achieve that with Bronze Age tools? Perhaps the most compelling clue lies beneath the visible stones. ground-penetrating radar recently revealed a fourth, even larger megalith buried nearby, the so-called Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighing a staggering 1,650 tons. It was never moved, as if the builders hit a limit even their advanced techniques couldn't overcome. Was Baalbek meant to be grander still, or did the abandonment of this monolith mark the moment some forgotten technology was lost? What chills the spine isn't just the scale of the Trilithon, it's the silence. The Romans, who later built atop these foundations, left detailed records of their engineering, yet never mentioned how the platform they used was constructed. It's as if the true builders' secrets were already ancient history to them. Today, as cranes groan under the weight of modern skyscrapers, Baalbek stands as a humbling reminder. Some chapters of human ingenuity remain written in stone, but not yet decoded. From the air, Peru's Nazca Desert reveals its secrets, a sprawling canvas of geometric shapes, spirals, and animal figures so vast they dwarf football fields. The hummingbird's wings stretch 120 meters tip to tip. The spider's legs curve with anatomical precision. The straightest lines run for miles without deviating an inch, as if drawn by a giant's ruler. All of it etched into the earth over 2,000 years ago by a culture with no written language, no known surveying tools, and certainly no airplanes. That's the enigma of the Nazca lines, a masterpiece of scale and symmetry created by people who could never see their own work in full. How do you draw a perfect triangle the size of a city block without ever stepping back to check your lines? Conventional archaeology suggests the Nazca used simple tools, ropes, wooden stakes, and perhaps grids scaled up from smaller models. Experiments in the 1960s showed teams could recreate basic shapes this way, but the results lacked the jaw-dropping precision of the originals. Take the famous astronaut figure perched on a hillside. Its proportions are so exact that modern artists using GPS still struggle to replicate its balance. Even more baffling are the lines that traverse rugged terrain, some climbing steep inclines yet maintaining laser-straight trajectories. No rope and stake method accounts for this level of accuracy across uneven ground. Then there's the matter of perspective. Many glyphs only reveal their form when viewed from specific altitudes, as if the artists calculated optical distortions invisible from ground level. Some researchers propose the Nazca built rudimentary observation towers or hot air balloons, though no evidence of either has been found. Others point to the desert's unique topography. The flat, stony surface acts like a giant etching pad, where removing the darker top layer exposes lighter substrate beneath. But this only explains preservation, not design. Were the lines meant as messages to gods in the sky, or did the Nazca possess a form of sacred geometry, encoding mathematical ratios passed down through generations? The most compelling clue might lie in the culture's water rituals. Recent studies show many glyphs align with underground aquifers, suggesting they were part of a vast hydrological map. Spirals could mark water sources, while straight lines might have been ceremonial pathways for processions. If true, the precision wasn't just artistic, it was survival. Every curve and angle may have held life or death meaning, guiding a desert people to precious resources invisible to the naked eye. Yet even this theory doesn't fully unravel the mystery. Modern engineers using satellite imagery still can't explain how the Nazca achieved such flawless symmetry without a single guiding error, no rough drafts. No corrections, just mile after mile of confident, uninterrupted lines, as if the artists saw the desert from above in their mind's eyes. Maybe that's the real secret here, not lost technology, but a way of seeing and thinking so different from ours that we're only beginning to grasp its possibilities. Beneath the crystal-clear waters off Japan's Yonaguni Island, a massive stone formation rises from the ocean floor like a forgotten dream. With its flat terraces, sharp 90-degree angles, and staircase-like structures, it looks uncannily like an ancient stepped pyramid, one that shouldn't exist. Discovered by a diver in 1986, the Yonaguni monument has sparked a debate that cuts to the very heart of archaeology. Is this a breathtaking natural formation, or proof of a lost civilization swallowed by the sea? Geologists point to the region's active tectonic activity, arguing that sandstone fractures naturally into geometric patterns over time. They cite similar formations along coastlines worldwide, where wind and water carve stone into stair-like shapes. But here's the twist: Yonaguni's steps align in ways that defy typical erosion patterns. The structure's two massive pillars, each weighing hundreds of tons, stand perfectly parallel as if placed deliberately. Nearby, what appears to be a carved face stares blankly from the rock, its features too symmetrical to dismiss as chance. Even more compelling are the tool marks some researchers claim to have found, straight grooves that resemble chisel strikes, clustered in areas where nature rarely leaves such precise scars. If human hands did shape this monument, the implications rewrite history. The site sank beneath the waves around 2,000 years ago, long before recorded Japanese civilization had the technology to construct such edifices. Could it belong to the Jaman people, a prehistoric culture known for advanced pottery but not monumental architecture? Or was it built by an even older society, one erased by rising seas at the end of the last ice age? Local legends speak of a sunken city called Mu, a Pacific counterpart to Atlantis, though mainstream scholars dismiss this as myth. Diving deeper into the mystery reveals another layer: the monument's alignment. Its broadest terrace points directly toward the setting sun during the summer solstice, a feature seen in ancient megalithic sites worldwide. Nearby underwater, roads stretch across the seabed, their flat surfaces too regular to be mere geology. Marine archaeologists have even identified what looks like a stadium-like structure, with stepped seating encircling a central platform. If these features are artificial, they suggest a complex designed not just for function, but for communal gathering, a place where rituals might have unfolded under the open sky, now silent beneath 60 feet of water. The most haunting question isn't whether Yonaguni is man-made, but how its builders, if they existed, worked underwater. Some theorists propose the site was constructed on dry land during a period of lower sea levels, then submerged as glaciers melted. Others speculate about advanced techniques like cofferdams or air-filled chambers, though no evidence supports this. What's undeniable is the site's eerie magnetism. Dive guides report unusual compass fluctuations near the structure, and marine life avoids certain areas, as if the stones still hum with forgotten energy. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between nature and human ingenuity. Sandstone can indeed fracture into planes, but the sheer concentration of architectural features in one spot strains coincidence. Until a carved artifact or tool is found amid the coral-encrusted stones, Yonaguni will remain a riddle, one that challenges our understanding of both geology and history. It stands as a testament to the ocean's power to hide as much as it reveals, reminding us that the past might be far stranger and more advanced than we've dared to imagine. High in the Bolivian Andes, the ruins of Pumapunku look less like an ancient temple and more like a cosmic jigsaw puzzle abandoned by giants. The scattered andesite blocks, some weighing over 130 tons, aren't just massive, they're eerily precise. Sharp 90-degree angles, smooth, flat surfaces that reflect light like glass. Geometric grooves and drill holes so uniform they could have been made by a CNC machine. Yet carbon dating places this site at nearly 2,000 years old, long before the invention of even basic metal tools. That's the heart of the mystery. How did a civilization without hardened steel or precision instruments carve one of Earth's hardest stones with micrometer-level accuracy? Modern engineers have tried replicating these cuts using primitive tools, and the results are telling. Andesite ranks just below diamond on the Mohs hardness scale, meaning copper or bronze chisels would shatter against it like butter knives on granite. Even with today's diamond-tipped saws, achieving Pumapunku's flawless seams requires computer-guided calibration. Some of the blocks feature interlocking channels that resemble modern construction techniques. Think I-beams or Lego-like connectors, suggesting the builders weren't just stacking stones but engineering them to withstand seismic shifts. The most baffling detail: drill holes that run perfectly straight through 12 inches of solid rock, with no tool marks or deviations. Try accomplishing that with a handheld bow drill and sand abrasives, and you'll quickly realize the impossibility. Theories attempting to explain this precision range from the pragmatic to the extraordinary. Archaeologists like to point to the peck and grind method, where workers might have pounded stones with harder rocks for months to slowly shape them. But this doesn't account for the mathematical consistency of the angles or the absence of tool slippage marks. More provocative researchers suggest the use of lost technologies, perhaps vibrational tools that softened stone temporarily, or lenses harnessing sunlight to melt and slice rock. Local Aymara legends even speak of sky people who shared advanced knowledge, though mainstream science dismisses this as myth. What's often overlooked is the sheer purpose behind this precision. Pumapunku wasn't just a display of technical prowess, it was a functional marvel. The interlocking blocks fit so tightly that they resisted earthquakes for centuries, their modular design allowing slight movements without collapse. Some scholars believe the site was a kind of ancient, snap-together temple, where prefabricated components could be transported and assembled rapidly. If true, this implies a level of standardization and planning unmatched until the Industrial Revolution. The real shocker came in 2018, when geologists analyzed the andesite's composition. The stone originated 15 miles away at a volcano's summit, meaning these multi-ton blocks were somehow hauled down steep slopes at 12,000 feet of altitude. No wheels, no draft animals, just human ingenuity and ropes, or so we assume. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Pumapunku isn't about the cuts in the stone, but the gaps in our understanding. Every time a new laser scan reveals another impossibly perfect angle, it whispers the same unsettling question: how much of history's genius have we underestimated? In the quiet town of Homestead, Florida, a lanky Latvian immigrant named Edward Līdzkalnis spent 28 years carving a mystery out of solid coral rock. The result: Coral Castle, a sprawling complex where 20-ton stones balance delicately on top of one another. A 9-ton gate rotates with the push of a finger, and perfectly aligned celestial markers track the moon's phases. All of it built by one man working alone at night, with no witnesses and no heavy machinery. When asked how he moved these massive blocks, Līdzkalnis would simply smile and say he'd discovered the secrets of the pyramids. But those secrets died with him in 1951, leaving behind a puzzle that defies every law of physics we know. The scale of Līdzkalnis' achievement is staggering. The castle's largest stone, nicknamed the Jupiter Block, weighs an estimated 30 tons, equivalent to 3 school buses. Yet photographs from the 1940s show Līdzkalnis, a frail man barely over 100 pounds, posing beside these monoliths with no visible equipment. Neighbors reported seeing him work with nothing more than home-made wooden tripods and chains, yet somehow the stones seemed to glide into place as if weightless. Engineers have scrutinized his tools for decades, but none can explain how primitive pulleys could generate enough force to lift and position such mass with millimeter precision. Then there's the infamous 9-ton revolving gate, a masterpiece of balance that baffled experts for generations. Carved from a single piece of coral, the 8-foot-tall door pivots on a metal rod so smoothly that children could spin it with one hand. NASA engineers disassembled it in 1986, expecting to find modern bearings or counterweights. Instead, they discovered nothing but a rusty truck axle and sheer perfection in the stone's shaping, a frictionless pivot point achieved without lasers or computer modeling. Leedskalnin's notebooks, filled with cryptic diagrams about magnetism and perpetual motion holders, only deepened the mystery. Some theorists suggest he harnessed anti-gravity or acoustic levitation, pointing to his obsession with electromagnetism and strange devices found in his workshop. Others propose he rediscovered an ancient principle of counterbalance, using the stone's own weight against them like a Stone Age seesaw. But the most haunting clue might lie in the castle's alignment. The walls and sculptures track celestial events with uncanny accuracy, suggesting Leedskalnin wasn't just moving stone, he was encoding astronomical knowledge into the very bones of his creation. What makes Coral Castle unique isn't just the how, it's the why. This wasn't a commissioned project or a public monument. It was a lonely man's love letter to a lost fiancée, etched in coral over a lifetime. Perhaps that's the real secret here, not some forgotten technology, but the sheer force of human obsession. After all, if one determined man could reshape the landscape with little more than patience and primitive tools, what does that say about the limits we place on our own potential? Coral Castle stands as a testament to the mysteries we've yet to solve, and the ones we carry within us. Beneath the sun-baked plains of Cappadocia, Turkey, lies a labyrinth so vast it could swallow entire neighborhoods. Derinkuyu, an underground city carved 8 stories deep into volcanic rock. At its peak, this subterranean metropolis sheltered 20,000 people from invaders, complete with stables, chapels, and even wineries, all hidden beneath the earth. But what truly staggers the imagination isn't just the scale, it's the precision. Ventilation shafts plunge hundreds of feet, delivering fresh air to every level. Massive circular stone doors, each weighing half a ton, could be rolled shut with a single push, sealing off tunnels like something out of a fantasy novel. And all of it was chiseled by hand over 2,500 years ago, long before the invention of theodolites or blueprints. The logistics of Derinkuyu's construction boggle the mind. Soft volcanic tuff is easier to carve than granite, but the city's stability defies geology. Modern engineers calculate that ceilings this wide, some spanning 30 feet, should have collapsed under their own weight without support beams. Yet Derinkuyu's architects somehow calculated load distribution so perfectly that their chambers still stand today. Even more perplexing are the ventilation shafts, some as narrow as 8 inches in diameter, that maintain airflow across 18 levels. Recreating these with modern drills would require laser guidance, yet ancient builders angled them to harness natural wind currents with near-scientific precision. Then there are the doors. These aren't just slabs of rock, they're engineering masterpieces. Carved with a slight convex curve, they pivot on stone sockets so smoothly that even a child could operate them. Archaeologists suspect the doors functioned like primitive airlocks. When sealed, they not only blocked invaders but also regulated oxygen flow, preventing suffocation in the lower chambers. The question isn't just how they crafted these mechanisms, it's how they knew to. Without understanding gas density or fluid dynamics, how did they design a life support system for a city buried beneath the earth? Local folklore offers eerie clues. Ancient Hittite texts speak of sky gods who taught humans to build underground, while early Christian inhabitants believed the city was divinely inspired. Modern researchers propose a more grounded theory: generations of trial and error. Cappadocia's soft rock made early cave dwellings common, and over centuries these expanded into connected networks. Yet this doesn't explain the sudden leap to multi-level urban planning. Derinkuyu's earliest sections show the same sophisticated layout as its later additions, as if the builders worked from a pre-existing template. What chills the spine isn't the mystery of how they dug, it's why they anticipated every need. Storerooms held enough food for months, wells tapped into underground rivers. Even the staircases were designed with uneven steps to slow invaders in the dark. This wasn't just a refuge, it was a doomsday bunker, planned with foresight that rivals modern preppers. As we stare down our own era of climate crises and pandemics, Derinkuyu whispers an unsettling truth. Perhaps survival isn't about advancing technology, but rediscovering the wisdom of those who have already faced the abyss. Scattered across the jungles and riverbeds of Costa Rica, the stone spheres of Diqui seem like artifacts from another world, perfectly round, impossibly smooth, and ranging in size from a basketball to a small car. The largest weigh up to 16 tons, yet their surfaces show no tool marks or irregularities, as if molded rather than carved. These orbs weren't just dropped haphazardly, they were placed with deliberate precision, often in geometric patterns or aligned with celestial events. But here's the twist: the culture that created them left no written records, no blueprints, not even a single clue about how or why they crafted these stone perfections over 1,000 years ago. The mystery begins with the material itself. The spheres are carved from gabbro, a volcanic rock so dense that modern sculptors use diamond-tipped tools to shape it. Yet somehow, pre-Columbian artisans achieved near-flawless spherical symmetry using nothing but stone hammers and patience. Experiments show that replicating even a small sphere with primitive tools takes months of relentless grinding. But the Diqui spheres aren't just roughly round, they're precise within millimeters, rivaling the smoothness of a modern ball bearing. Some researchers speculate they used a system of rope abrasion, slowly wearing down the stone with sand and water. Others propose they crafted wooden scaffolds to rotate the spheres continuously, allowing even wear, but neither method fully explains how they maintained such consistency across hundreds of spheres, some separated by miles of rugged terrain. Then there's the question of purpose. Local legends speak of the spheres as gifts from the gods, or perhaps navigational aids for celestial travelers. Archaeologists note their alignments with solstice sunrises, suggesting they might have functioned as a massive astronomical calendar. The most tantalizing theory comes from their placement near ancient settlements. Clusters of spheres often form isosceles triangles or straight lines extending for hundreds of feet. Were they territorial markers, symbols of power, or part of a ritual landscape designed to mirror constellations? The truth might lie in the culture's worldview. Unlike Western architecture, which prioritizes vertical monuments, the Diqui's people may have seen sacred geometry in the horizontal plane. Their cathedrals laid out in circles and lines across the earth itself. What makes these spheres truly unsettling is their fate. When Spanish colonizers arrived in the 16th century, they dismissed the stones as pagan relics, looting many to use as decoration or even smashing them searching for gold. Later, banana plantations bulldozed entire clusters, scattering them like marbles. Today, only a handful remain in their original positions, leaving us with fragments of a puzzle we may never fully solve. Perhaps the real lesson of the Diqui spheres isn't about lost techniques, but about the fragility of knowledge itself. A civilization capable of such precision left behind no instructions, only silent, perfect stones that refuse to reveal their secrets. And that's the most haunting thought of all. How many other marvels have vanished because no one thought to write them down? Stand at the base of El Castillo, the great pyramid of Chichen Itza, and clap your hands once. Instead of a dull echo, you'll hear something extraordinary, a sharp, almost metallic chirp that mimics the cry of the sacred Quetzal bird, a creature revered in Mayan cosmology as a bridge between earth and sky. This isn't just a happy accident of architecture. It's a deliberate acoustic masterpiece, engineered over 1,000 years ago by builders who somehow harnessed the physics of sound without oscilloscopes, microphones, or even the concept of sound waves as we understand them today. The precision behind this sonic illusion is staggering. Each step of the pyramid acts like a sound diffuser, breaking the clap into a cascade of reflections that merge seamlessly into that avian echo. Modern acoustic engineers have measured the phenomenon and found the pyramid's staircase functions like a fractal resonator, a structure where smaller, repeating shapes amplify specific frequencies. The result, a chirp that peaks at around 1,100 Hz, almost identical to the Quetzal's natural call. But here's the twist. The effect only works when you clap from a specific spot directly in front of the pyramid, suggesting the Mayans didn't just understand sound, they choreographed it. How they achieved this without modern tools remains a puzzle. Some researchers propose they used trial and error, sculpting the steps over generations until the echoes aligned with ritual needs. Others point to the Mayas' advanced mathematical prowess. Their calendar systems prove they thought in complex cyclical patterns, which might have translated to acoustic harmonics. The most compelling clue lies in the pyramid's dimensions. The ratio between the step height and tread depth creates a series of sound reflections that cancel out certain frequencies while amplifying others, effectively tuning the structure like a giant stone instrument. Yet the chirp is just one layer of the pyramid's acoustic genius. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, sunlight slithers down the staircase, casting a serpent-shaped shadow that aligns with carved snake heads at the base. At the same moment, researchers have recorded a strange amplification of ambient noise, a phenomenon locals call the whisper of Kukulkan, where even soft speech at the top can be heard clearly at ground level. This convergence of sound and light hints at something deeper, a sacred technology designed to synchronize human ritual with cosmic events. What's truly humbling isn't just the sophistication of the design, it's the cultural intent behind it. The Quetzal's call wasn't just a clever trick, it was a divine signal confirming the god's presence during ceremonies. Modern concert halls spend millions to achieve perfect acoustics, yet the Maya accomplished it with limestone and geometry, weaving physics into spirituality. As we decode these ancient sonic blueprints, we're left wondering, were they scientists, priests, or both? And how much of their wisdom still echoes in the stones, waiting for us to listen? In the heart of Delhi's Qutub complex, a 23-foot iron pillar stands as a silent rebuke to everything we think we know about metallurgy. Forged in the 4th century, this ancient column has endured 1,600 monsoons, scorching summers, and the relentless pollution of a modern megacity, yet its surface remains smooth and rust-free. Modern steel would have crumbled to orange dust centuries ago, but the pillar's creators wielded a secret so advanced that industrial labs only cracked the code in the 1990s. The key lies in its phosphorus content, a deliberate recipe that forms a paper-thin protective film, shielding the iron from oxygen's corrosive touch. What's astonishing isn't just the pillar's durability, but the precision of its formula. Contemporary metallurgists analyzing the iron found it contains an unusually high phosphorus content, nearly 1% combined with remarkably low sulfur and manganese. This exact balance creates a passive hydroxide layer that self-repairs when scratched, a property now mimicked in modern stainless steels. The irony. Today's engineers achieve this effect through vacuum chambers and computer-controlled furnaces, while ancient smiths worked with open-air bloomeries and hand bellows. Theories about this lost knowledge span from the practical to the poetic. Some historians suggest the technique emerged accidentally from local iron ores rich in phosphorus, with generations of blacksmiths refining the process through trial and error. Others point to ancient Indian texts like the Artha Shastra, which describe advanced metal purification methods, hinting at a systematic understanding of metallurgy far ahead of its time. But the most tantalizing clue comes from the pillar's own inscription, which credits its construction to King Chandragupta's reign. The words boast of a king who conquered the world, yet say nothing of the pillar's uncorrodable nature, as if such marvels were commonplace. This casual brilliance raises unsettling questions. Why did this technology vanish for over a millennium? The answer might lie in the very process that preserved the pillar. High phosphorus iron is notoriously brittle when forged into weapons, a fatal flaw in an era of constant warfare. As empires rose and fell, metallurgists may have abandoned the formula for more malleable alloys, trading longevity for utility. Or perhaps the knowledge was guarded by guilds whose oral traditions died with them, leaving behind only this solitary iron sentinel as proof of their genius. Today, the pillar isn't just an archaeological curiosity, it's a beacon for sustainable innovation. Scientists studying its corrosion resistance are developing new alloys for bridges and pipelines, hoping to replicate its millennia-long lifespan. Yet the deeper lesson isn't about chemistry, it's about humility. In our age of space-age materials, a 6th century craftsman's work still outstrips our best efforts. The pillar doesn't gloat, it simply stands, polished by countless curious hands over centuries, whispering a truth we're only beginning to hear. Sometimes progress isn't about moving forward, it's about remembering what we once knew. Herodotus wasn't prone to exaggeration, but when he described Egypt's labyrinth at Hawara, even his words seemed to tremble with awe. It surpasses even the pyramids, he wrote in the 5th century BCE, detailing a vast complex of 3,000 rooms, walls covered in hieroglyphs, corridors twisting like a stone serpent beneath the desert. For centuries, scholars dismissed his account as fantasy until modern ground-penetrating radar revealed a honeycomb of hidden chambers beneath the sands, some reaching depths equivalent to a 10-story building. The scale is staggering, but the real mystery isn't the labyrinth's existence, it's the silence that followed. Why would a civilization pour such resources into a structure meant to be forgotten? The few fragments unearthed so far only deepen the enigma. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or temples, the labyrinth wasn't built to glorify gods or pharaohs. Archaeologists have found no grand statues, no treasure chambers, just endless passages and empty niches. Some theorize it was a colossal administrative center, a bureaucratic maze where priests stored sacred texts or tax records. Others believe it functioned as an initiation site, where the unworthy would lose themselves in its twists before emerging reborn. The most tantalizing clue comes from the Roman historian Strabo, who claimed the labyrinth held the secrets of the universe in its walls. Were these metaphorical truths or literal? Scans suggest some chambers align with celestial events, their layouts mirroring constellations visible only at certain times of year. What chills the spine isn't just the labyrinth's size, it's the precision of its burial. The entire complex was deliberately buried under tons of sand, as if someone wanted it erased from memory. Even the entrance, once marked by a towering pyramid, was dismantled stone by stone. This wasn't neglect, it was annihilation. The few surviving inscriptions speak of a gate to the underworld, sealed after a catastrophic event. Modern seismology supports this. Sediment layers reveal a massive earthquake struck the region around the time the labyrinth vanished. Did the ancients fear what slept beneath those halls? Or were they protecting knowledge too dangerous for the uninitiated? Today, less than 1% of the labyrinth has been excavated. Political tensions and groundwater flooding have stalled exploration, leaving most chambers untouched. But the scans don't lie. There's something down there, waiting in the dark. Perhaps the answer lies in Herodotus's most cryptic line: "To walk the labyrinth is to walk the mind of the gods." Not a building, then, but a blueprint, a map of forgotten wisdom carved in stone. Until the sands give up their secrets, we're left with a haunting truth: some doors were sealed for a reason. Beneath the waves off India's Gujarat coast, the ruins of Dwarka rise like ghosts from the ocean floor. Crumbling walls, scattered artifacts, and the faint outline of a city swallowed by the sea. According to Hindu texts like the Mahabharata, this was once the golden kingdom of Lord Krishna, a metropolis so grand its gates were studded with jewels and its streets paved with gold. For centuries, scholars dismissed these accounts as myth until marine archaeologists stumbled upon structures matching the descriptions exactly. Carbon dating sent shockwaves through the academic world. These ruins aren't just old, they're ancient, dating back over 9,000 years. That's millennia before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, before history as we know it even began. What makes Dwarka so extraordinary isn't just its age, it's the sophistication frozen in time. Sonar imaging reveals a grid-like street plan with fortified walls and rectangular foundations suggesting multi-story buildings. Divers have recovered pottery shards, beads, and even stone anchors, proving this wasn't just a settlement but a thriving port city. The real bombshell: the ruins align almost perfectly with descriptions in the Mahabharata, down to the city's layout and its catastrophic end. Ancient verses describe Dwarka's submersion after Krishna's death, with waves swallowing the city whole. Geological studies confirm a massive tsunami likely struck the region around 3,500 BCE, but the older layers of ruins suggest Dwarka was rebuilt multiple times, each iteration swallowed anew by the rising sea. The implications rewrite human history. Conventional wisdom claims urban civilization began around 4000 BC in Mesopotamia, yet Dwarka's ruins suggest advanced societies existed much earlier. How did a Bronze Age culture master urban planning, maritime trade, and monumental architecture so long ago? Some researchers point to the region's unique geography, situated near river mouths and trade routes. Dwarka may have been a hub for lost seafaring cultures. Others speculate it was part of a larger network, perhaps even the fabled Kumari Kingdom, a Dravidian Atlantis said to have vanished beneath the Indian Ocean. But the most haunting question isn't how Dwarka rose, it's why it fell. Core samples from the seabed reveal layers of silt and marine fossils, painting a picture of repeated cataclysms. Rising sea levels from melting glaciers, undersea earthquakes, the Mahabharata hints at a more chilling possibility: weapons of unimaginable power. One passage describes iron thunderbolts and blazing arrows that could level cities, eerily reminiscent of modern descriptions of explosives or even atomic blasts. While mainstream science scoffs at this interpretation, the timing aligns with a mysterious spike in radiation levels found in ancient skeletons from the region. Today, only 5% of Dwarka's ruins have been explored. Strong currents and shifting sands make excavation treacherous, leaving most of its secrets buried. But every artifact pulled from the depths adds another piece to the puzzle: a corroded coin, a shattered pillar, a seal inscribed with symbols no one can decipher. Each discovery whispers the same unsettling truth. History's timeline might be far older and far stranger than we've been taught. Dwarka doesn't just challenge our understanding of the past, it dares us to reconsider what's possible. If a city this advanced existed 9,000 years ago, what else might be lurking beneath the waves or buried in plain sight? High in the sacred valley of Peru, the fortress of Ollantaytambo stands as a monument to architectural defiance. Its most baffling feature, the 6 colossal pink granite monoliths known as the Wall of the 6 Monoliths, each weighing between 50 and 80 tons. These stones aren't just stacked, they're interlocked with such precision that their seams form zigzag patterns, fitting together like pieces of an ancient 3-dimensional puzzle. But here's what really stumps researchers. Some joints show glass-like streaks, as if the rock surfaces were momentarily liquefied and fused together. This phenomenon, called vitrification, suggests the builders wielded heat so intense it could soften granite like candle wax, a technique modern science still can't replicate without industrial lasers. How do you vitrify stone without 21st century technology? Experiments with concentrated sunlight and mirrors, similar to Archimedes' legendary heat ray, have proven inadequate for granite's melting point of over 1,200 degrees Celsius. Some theorists propose the use of natural lenses or parabolic reflectors, harnessing the Andean sun's intensity. Others speculate about plant-based chemicals that could lower granite's melting temperature, though no such substance has been identified. The most compelling clue comes from local Quechua legends, which speak of sunstones that could focus celestial energy. Could these stories preserve a kernel of truth about lost technology? The mystery deepens when you consider the stone's origin. The quarries where these megaliths were extracted lie across the valley, 6 kilometers away and 300 meters downhill. Transporting them would have required moving 80-ton blocks up steep inclines, across a river, and through narrow passes, a logistical nightmare even with modern machinery. Spanish chroniclers recorded Inca tales of the stones walking into place with the help of giants or gods, but archaeologists have found evidence of a more earthly, though no less impressive, solution, an elaborate system of ramps, ropes, and counterweights. Yet this still doesn't explain the vitrification. Were the builders combining brute force engineering with advanced heat techniques? What's often overlooked is the purpose behind this painstaking precision. Ollantaytambo wasn't just a fortress, it was a cosmological machine. The angles of the megalithic walls align with solstice sunrises, and their zigzag patterns may mimic sacred lightning motifs linked to the Inca weather god Illapa. The vitrified seams could have served a dual purpose: structural stability and symbolic power, turning stone into a conduit between earth and sky. Modern engineers trying to restore damaged sections face a humbling reality. Their mortar and steel reinforcements look crude beside seams fused at a molecular level. Perhaps the true lesson of Ollantaytambo lies in its contradictions. A site built with both monumental effort and delicate precision, where myth and material science intertwine. Every vitrified streak whispers the same unsettling question: did the Inca inherit techniques from a far older civilization? Or did they possess knowledge so advanced we've yet to recognize it as technology at all? Buried beneath the rolling hills of Zhejiang province, China's Longyou Caves are a subterranean enigma that defies both chronology and common sense. Discovered in 1992 when a curious villager drained a local pond, these hand-carved caverns stretch across 30,000 square meters, their ceilings soaring as high as a 10-story building, their walls covered in uniform, parallel grooves so precise they look like the work of industrial machinery. But here's the twist. Carbon dating places their construction over 2,000 years ago, in a time when historians insist no civilization possessed the tools or manpower to execute such a project. Even more baffling, not a single historical text, map, or folk legend mentions their existence. It's as if the caves were carved in secret, then deliberately erased from memory. The grooves tell the real story, running in near-perfect straight lines across every surface. They're spaced with such mathematical consistency that researchers initially suspected some form of ancient mass production tool. Yet no chisels or machinery capable of this precision have ever been found in the archaeological record. Modern engineers attempting to replicate the markings using traditional hammers and chisels found the task nearly impossible. The andesite rock is so hard that even steel tools dull within minutes. Some theorists propose the builders used a lost abrasion technique, perhaps grinding the stone with quartz sand and water over generations. Others point to the grooves' uncanny resemblance to acoustic diffusers found in modern concert halls, sparking speculation that the caves were designed to manipulate sound for ritual purposes. Scale compounds the mystery. Removing the estimated 1 million cubic meters of rock would have required thousands of workers laboring non-stop for decades, yet there's no evidence of spoil heaps or worker settlements nearby. The cave's structural integrity is another puzzle. Their arched ceilings distribute weight so effectively that not a single collapse has occurred in millennia, despite the region's frequent earthquakes. How did Bronze Age architects master principles of load-bearing physics that wouldn't be formalized until the Renaissance? Then there's the question of purpose. Unlike most ancient excavations, mines, tombs, or reservoirs, the Longyou Caves lack any obvious function. No artifacts, no murals, just an endless sea of grooves and caverns echoing with silence. Some researchers suggest they were imperial storage bunkers, though their remote location makes this unlikely. Others propose a spiritual motive, noting that the largest cavern's shape mirrors the mythical Hall of the Dragon King from local folklore. But the most haunting possibility that we're not meant to understand. The groove's uniformity hints at a language beyond symbols, a message encoded not in what was carved, but in how. As laser scans map the cave's hidden chambers, each new discovery deepens the riddle. Tunnels plunge toward underground rivers yet to be explored. Grooves align with solstice sunlight in patterns modern software struggles to decode. The Longyou Caves don't just challenge our timeline of technological progress, they whisper of a chapter in human history we've yet to read. And perhaps that's the point. Some mysteries aren't puzzles to solve, but reminders of how much we've forgotten. The zigzagging walls of Sacsayhuaman don't just hug the hillside, they dance with it. Their jagged limestone teeth interlocking so tightly that after 500 years of earthquakes, not a single stone has slipped out of place. Walk up to these monoliths, some weighing over 300 tons, and you'll find joints so precise you can't wedge a razor blade between them. But the real magic isn't just in the fit, it's in the form. Unlike straight walls which crack under seismic stress, Sacsayhuaman's zigzag design acts like a giant shock absorber, dispersing energy along its angles like ripples in a pond. Modern engineers call this structural discontinuity, a principle we've only mastered in the last century with reinforced concrete and flexible steel frames. Yet here it is, carved in stone by a civilization that never used the wheel. How did the Inca achieve such seismic sophistication? The answer might lie in their reverence for the land itself. These walls mirror the natural fractures in the Andes bedrock, mimicking the way mountains shed tectonic force. Some researchers believe Inca stonemasons observed how earthquakes affected different rock formations, then replicated nature's survival strategies in their architecture. Others point to their construction methods, Each block was likely ground against its neighbor using sand and water, a painstaking process that allowed them to test fit stones until the angles distributed weight perfectly. But the most compelling clue comes from the wall's celestial alignment. The zigzags frame the sunrise during the winter solstice, suggesting the Inca didn't just build for stability. They encoded cosmic knowledge into stone, turning architecture into a dialogue between earth and sky. What's truly humbling is how these techniques outshine modern alternatives. When a 7.8 magnitude quake struck Cusco in 1950, colonial buildings crumbled while Sacsayhuaman stood unshaken. Recent laser scans revealed why. The wall's irregular joints create microscopic gaps that let stones shift during tremors, then settle back into place like a self-healing puzzle. We've since copied this principle in skyscrapers from Tokyo to San Francisco, using expensive synthetic elastomers to mimic what the Inca achieved with gravity and geometry. The lingering question isn't just how they built these walls, it's why they chose such a labor-intensive design. Straight walls would have been faster to construct, but the Inca prioritized permanence over convenience. Some scholars think the zigzags symbolized lightning, a sacred force in Andean cosmology. Others argue they're a physical manifesto of the Inca worldview, that true strength comes from flexibility, not rigidity. Whatever the reason, Sacsayhuaman's walls whisper a lesson we're still learning. Sometimes, the most advanced technology isn't about inventing something new, but listening to the wisdom already written in the stones beneath our feet. Lying half-buried in the red granite quarries of Aswan, the unfinished obelisk is a frozen moment of ancient ambition and failure. This colossal monument, had it been completed, would have stretched 137 feet skyward and weighed nearly 1,200 tons, dwarfing every other obelisk ever carved. But its creators never got the chance to lift it. A fatal crack spiderwebbed through the stone during extraction, condemning it to forever remain part of the bedrock. Yet this failure is one of archaeology's greatest gifts, offering a rare glimpse into techniques so advanced they border on the unimaginable. The first shock comes from the obelisk's scale. To visualize its mass, picture 3 fully loaded Airbus A380 jets stacked together. The Egyptians planned to extract this single piece of granite using nothing but dolerite pounders, baseball-sized stones harder than the quarry bedrock. Workers would have swung these in endless rhythms, pounding grooves along predetermined lines while others flushed the debris with water. Experiments show this method could advance about 5 millimeters per hour, meaning the obelisk's initial trenches would have required millions of man-hours before the first attempt to detach it. But here's what baffles engineers. The trenches surrounding the obelisk are only wide enough for one person to work at a time. This wasn't mass labor. It was precision surgery conducted by teams rotating in shifts, likely over decades. Then there's the transportation puzzle. Even if successfully freed, how would they have moved this behemoth? The nearest Nile embarkation point lies nearly a mile away, over uneven desert terrain. Modern calculations suggest it would require the combined force of 25,000 men dragging it on lubricated sledges, a logistical nightmare when considering food, water, and coordination. Some scholars propose they might have used a system of counterweighted levers to walk the obelisk incrementally, a technique depicted in tomb paintings for smaller stones. But at this scale, even a slight miscalculation could have shattered the monolith or crushed workers. The most compelling clue lies beneath the obelisk itself. Archaeologists found a network of channels that may have been used to float the stone during Nile floods, turning water into an ancient heavy lift crane. But the true mind-bender is how they planned to erect it. Existing obelisks show the Egyptians mastered a technique called pyramidion first, where the tip was raised incrementally while the base remained anchored. For the unfinished obelisk, this would involve pivoting a structure heavier than the Statue of Liberty's pedestal into perfect vertical alignment without steel cables or hydraulic jacks. The margin for error, less than 1 degree, a slight tilt would have sent the obelisk crashing, wasting centuries of labor. What makes this abandoned project so haunting isn't just the technical audacity, it's the cultural conviction. The workers knew they might not live to see completion, yet they carved with generational patience. Each strike of the dolerite hammer was an act of faith in knowledge passed down through centuries. Today, as cranes loft skyscraper beams with computerized precision, the unfinished obelisk whispers a humbling truth. Some ambitions can't be measured in years or tons, but in the unwavering belief that stone can be made to touch the sky. Göbekli Tepe doesn't just rewrite history, it tears up the entire timeline and starts over. Hidden beneath the dusty hills of southeastern Turkey, this sprawling complex of carved limestone pillars isn't just old, it's impossibly ancient, dating back 12,000 years. That's 6 millennia before Stonehenge, 7,000 years before the pyramids, and a staggering 4,000 years before humans even invented pottery or domesticated wheat. Yet here it stands, 20 circular enclosures, each anchored by T-shaped pillars weighing up to 20 tons, adorned with intricate carvings of lions, scorpions, and vultures. This isn't just a temple, it's a thunderclap of cognitive revolution, proving that hunter-gatherers achieved architectural sophistication long before we thought them capable of basic farming. The mystery begins with the builders themselves. Conventional wisdom insists monumental architecture requires surplus labor, the kind only possible with agriculture's steady food supply. But Göbekli Tepe's creators were nomadic, surviving on wild plants and game. So how did they coordinate hundreds of workers to quarry, carve, and transport these megaliths without permanent settlements or storage systems? The answer might lie in the carvings themselves. Many pillars depict dangerous predators, suggesting rituals or mythologies powerful enough to unite scattered bands for a common purpose. Imagine it, clans traveling vast distances, not for food, but for something far more abstract, the birth of collective belief. Then there's the engineering. These pillars weren't just dropped into holes, they were slotted into precisely carved bedrock sockets, their bases tapered like pegs into stone. The largest enclosure, dubbed Structure D, features 2 central pillars standing 16 feet tall, their surfaces etched with belts and human arms, as if the stones themselves were frozen giants. Archaeologists have found evidence of roofing, implying some enclosures were covered, while others stood open to the sky. The precision is baffling. Without metal tools or even pottery vessels to hold water, how did they achieve such symmetry? Some researchers propose they used rope abrasion and fire setting to shape the limestone, while others speculate about lost technologies like polished obsidian cutting tools. But the real enigma is abandonment. After centuries of use, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE, filled with thousands of tons of rubble in what can only be described as history's first known act of architectural preservation or concealment. Was it a ritual closing, a defense against some forgotten threat, or perhaps the builders realized their creation was too revolutionary, a spark of civilization that needed to be hidden until the world was ready? What chills the spine isn't the unanswered questions, it's the implications. If hunter-gatherers could organize this profoundly, perhaps agriculture didn't enable monumental art as we assumed. Maybe it was the other way around. The need to build first forced humans to settle, sowing the seeds of farming and society. Göbekli Tepe doesn't just question how they built, it forces us to ask why. And in that question lies a revelation. Civilization might not be the product of practicality, but of something far deeper. the human urge to reach beyond survival and touch the divine. The smooth, almost seamless blocks of the Great Pyramid have long fueled speculation. What if these stones weren't carved but poured? A controversial theory gaining traction in fringe archaeology circles suggests the ancient Egyptians might have mastered geopolymer chemistry, essentially creating artificial stone on site like an ancient version of modern concrete. Lab analyses reveal intriguing clues: microscopic bubbles, unusual mineral ratios, and organic fibers embedded within some blocks, features rarely seen in natural limestone. If true, this would rewrite our understanding of pyramid construction, turning back-breaking quarrying into a sophisticated chemical process. Mainstream archaeologists remain skeptical, pointing to the overwhelming evidence of quarries at Chura and Giza, where matching stone has been identified. Yet the geopolymer argument hinges on subtler details. French materials scientist Joseph Davidovitz notes that certain pyramid blocks contain minerals like opal-CT and hydroxyapatite compounds that form in synthetic stone mixtures, not natural bedrock. His experiments show that crushing soft limestone, mixing it with natron, a salt found in Egyptian embalming, and adding water could create a slurry that hardens into a material nearly identical to the pyramid's casing stones. The process would explain how workers achieved such precision without advanced tools. Instead of hauling multi-ton blocks, they'd transport bags of powdered stone and cast them in wooden molds. But critics counter with logistical hurdles. Geopolymer production on this scale would require vast amounts of fuel to heat raw materials, yet no evidence of furnaces or ash layers has been found near the pyramids. Others argue that the theory underestimates the Egyptians' quarrying prowess, evidenced by their flawless obelisks and sarcophagi carved from solid granite. The most damning rebuttal comes from geologists who have identified sedimentary layers within pyramid blocks that match natural limestone formations, proving at least some stones were cut, not cast. The debate takes a tantalizing turn when examining older structures. At the step pyramid of Djoser, some blocks show textures eerily similar to modern concrete, with layered pores visible under microscopes. Even more compelling are the accounts of Herodotus, who described workers pouring stone during pyramid construction, a detail long dismissed as metaphor. Could these be garbled references to a lost technique? Ancient texts mention a mysterious substance called poured stone in temple rituals, though no recipes survive. What's often overlooked is the broader implication. If geopolymers were used even sporadically, it suggests the ancients viewed chemistry and engineering as intertwined disciplines. Modern geopolymer cements, developed in the 1970s, now offer eco-friendly alternatives to Portland cement, proving the concept's validity. Perhaps the real mystery isn't whether the Egyptians used synthetic stone, but why the knowledge vanished. Was it a guarded secret of priestly castes? Or a technology abandoned when its purpose to build monuments for eternity became obsolete? The pyramids refused to give up their secrets easily. For every study supporting geopolymers, another refutes it, leaving us suspended between two competing visions of the past. One where workers toiled under the lash, dragging stones across deserts, and another, far more revolutionary, where they wielded chemistry like alchemists, turning dust into immortality. Until a smoking gun artifact emerges, the theory remains a tantalizing what if, reminding us that history's greatest monuments might still hold untold layers of innovation. High on the windswept plains of Bolivia, the Gate of the Sun stands like a sentinel from another age. Carved from a single block of andesite weighing nearly 10 tons, this towering arch is etched with intricate celestial maps and a central figure often called the sun god. though no one truly knows who or what it represents. But here's what makes this monument so baffling. It doesn't belong where it sits. The gate was moved centuries ago from its original location, leaving archaeologists to wonder, where did it once stand and what purpose did it serve in that lost context? The carvings hold the first clue. Along the arch's surface, a complex grid of symbols and figures seems to track celestial events with startling precision. Some researchers believe the lines depict a sophisticated calendar system, marking solstices and equinoxes with uncanny accuracy. On the winter solstice, sunlight strikes the central figure in a way that suggests deliberate alignment, a solar marker carved into stone by people who understood the heavens far better than we've credited them for. Yet the gate's current position doesn't align with these events, proving it was once part of a much larger, carefully orchestrated complex. Was it the centerpiece of a temple? A portal to some sacred space now erased by time? Then there's the question of craftsmanship. Andesite is one of the hardest stones on Earth, requiring diamond-tipped tools to carve with any precision today. Yet the gate's intricate designs feature sharp, clean lines and geometric perfection, as if the sculptors worked with supernatural ease. Local legends speak of a race of giants who built Tiwanaku in a single night, while more pragmatic theories suggest the use of bronze chisels and abrasive sand, though experiments with these tools struggle to replicate the gate's flawless details. The most compelling enigma, the gate's backside is smooth and uncarved, as if it was meant to be seen from only one angle. Why devote such artistry to a single viewpoint unless it held ritual or ceremonial significance? Perhaps the most haunting mystery isn't the gate itself, but the civilization that created it. The Tiwanaku people left no written records, and by the time the Inca rose to power, the site was already abandoned, its builders long vanished into myth. Spanish chroniclers recorded Inca tales of Tiwanaku as a place of origins where the world began, but they found it in ruins, its secrets already buried. Modern laser scans reveal subterranean structures and hidden waterways beneath the site, hinting at a sprawling urban plan far beyond what's visible today. Was the gate part of an observatory, a threshold to the underworld, or a cosmic blueprint encoding knowledge we've yet to decipher? Standing before the gate of the sun today, you're left with an unsettling realization. This isn't just a relic of the past. It's a challenge, a silent dare from the ancients, asking if we're clever enough to decode their celestial cipher. Until we uncover its original home or the meaning behind those cryptic carvings, the gate remains what it's always been, a doorway not just to the sky, but to the limits of our own understanding. Beneath the sunlit temples of Malta lies a hidden world of sound and shadow, the Hypogeum of Hal Saflini, a labyrinth of chambers carved 3 stories deep into solid limestone. But this isn't just an ancient burial site. Step into its oval chambers and you'll notice something eerie. The walls seem to hum. When archaeologists first measured the acoustics, they discovered something extraordinary. Certain frequencies resonate at exactly 110 Hz, a pitch known to alter brain activity. At this frequency, human brains show decreased activity in the language centers and increased activity in the emotional and imaginative regions, a state linked to trance, meditation, and even hallucinations. Was this acoustic phenomenon an accident of architecture or deliberate design? The Hypogeum's builders shaped every curve and niche with uncanny precision. The oracle chamber, with its domed ceiling and concave walls, acts like a giant resonator. Speak softly into one of its niches, and your voice amplifies to fill the entire room, vibrating through stone like a living thing. Modern sound engineers have tried for years to replicate this effect in larger spaces and failed. Yet 5,000 years ago, without oscilloscopes or decibel meters, the Hypogeum's architects achieved acoustic perfection. Some researchers believe they used water-filled tubes as primitive tuning forks, adjusting chamber dimensions until the walls sang at the desired pitch. The implications are staggering. Ancient Maltese art depicts figures with elongated, almost vibrating forms. Could these be representations of sound waves or altered states? Even more chilling are the reports from early excavators who described feeling an overwhelming sense of dread in certain chambers, as if the walls themselves were pressing in. Recent experiments revealed that prolonged exposure to 110 Hz in the Hypogeum's confines induces disorientation and visions, precisely the conditions sought in shamanic rituals worldwide. But the real mystery isn't just the sound, it's the silence. The Hypogeum absorbs certain frequencies completely, creating pockets of eerie quiet where whispers vanish midair. This interplay of amplification and absorption suggests the builders understood sound as a tangible force, sculpting it as carefully as they carved stone. Modern concert halls spend millions to achieve similar effects with computer-modeled panels, yet the Hypogeum's designers worked in darkness, guided by nothing but intuition and tradition. What were they trying to accomplish? Some theorize the Hypogeum was a womb of the goddess, where initiates underwent sonic rebirth. Others suggest it functioned as an ancient brainwave entrainment device, using rhythm and resonance to unlock altered consciousness. The most haunting clue lies in the bones. Thousands of skeletons were found arranged in spirals, their ear bones carefully positioned near resonance points, as if sound itself was the last thing they'd hear. Today, access to the Hypogeum is severely restricted, not just to preserve the site, but because visitors still report strange phenomena, voices where none should be, vibrations with no source, and an oppressive weight in the air. Science can measure the frequencies, but it can't explain why they affect us so deeply. The Hypogeum doesn't just challenge our understanding of ancient technology, it whispers an unsettling truth about the power of sound to shape reality itself. Some doors to the past shouldn't be opened lightly. Buried in Scandinavian graves and riverbeds, the Viking Ulfbert swords stand as gleaming anomalies in the Dark Ages, their blades so pure, so advanced, they defy the very timeline of metallurgical progress. Forged between the 9th and 11th centuries, these weapons contain steel with a carbon content rivaling modern alloys, free from the slag and impurities that plagued European swords of the era. The mystery isn't just their quality, it's their origin. Europe wouldn't master such crucible steel for another 800 years, yet here it is, etched with the enigmatic Ulfbert signature, wielded by warriors who supposedly lived in an age of crude ironwork. The secret lies in the crucible. Traditional Viking smiths used bloomery furnaces, which rarely reached temperatures high enough to fully separate iron from impurities. But Ulfbert blades required a staggering 1,600 degrees Celsius, a heat only achievable in sealed clay crucibles, a technique documented in Persia and Central Asia at the time. Chemical analysis reveals trace elements like vanadium and titanium in the steel, fingerprints pointing to ore deposits as far away as modern-day Afghanistan. This raises a tantalizing possibility. The Vikings weren't just raiders, they were global traders, connected to Silk Road networks that stretched thousands of miles beyond their homelands. Imagine Norse longships sailing not just west to England, but east to the Volga trade routes, returning with ingots of crucible steel as precious as gold. Yet the plot thickens. Some Ulfbert swords show inconsistencies in craftsmanship, suggesting later forgeries, medieval knockoffs of the original brand. The genuine articles, however, display a uniformity that hints at centralized production, perhaps in a single workshop with closely guarded techniques. How did this knowledge vanish? The answer might lie in the Crusades. As Islamic and Christian armies clashed, trade routes fractured, cutting off Europe from eastern steelmaking hubs. By the time the Vikings faded from prominence, their metallurgical secrets may have been lost in the chaos of shifting empires. What's most striking isn't the sword's sharpness, it's their resilience. Modern replicas tested against period-appropriate weapons demonstrate their terrifying superiority. An Ulfbert blade could bend nearly 90 degrees without breaking, while lesser swords shattered on impact. In an era where battle often came down to a single stroke, this wasn't just advanced technology, it was a psychological weapon. To face an Ulfbert was to face something uncanny, a sliver of the future flashing in the sunlight. The real enigma isn't how they made these swords, but why the knowledge died. Perhaps the answer lies in the Viking ethos itself, a culture that valued deeds over documentation, where mastery was passed orally from smith to apprentice, vulnerable to time's erosion. Today, as archaeologists pore over these blades with particle accelerators and spectrometers, the Ulfbert swords whisper a humbling truth, that progress isn't always linear, and that the past might hold forgotten peaks of brilliance we've yet to reclaim. Buried in the ruins of ancient Assyria, the Nimrod Lenses whisper of optical secrets lost to time. Discovered in 1850 by archaeologist Austin Henry Layard, these polished rock crystal discs date back 3,000 years, long before historians believed lenses existed. The most famous specimen, no larger than a modern magnifying glass, could focus sunlight into a pinpoint bright enough to ignite tinder. But here's what makes these artifacts so unsettling. Their precision suggests a sophistication far beyond simple fire-starting tools. Ground to near-perfect convex curves, some lenses can magnify text up to 3 times, a feat requiring mathematical understanding of optics that wouldn't be formalized until Islamic scholars like Alhazen over a millennium later. Why would an Iron Age civilization need magnification? One theory points to astronomy. Assyrian star charts from the same period show remarkably detailed observations of celestial events, including the movements of Jupiter's moons, invisible to the naked eye. Could these lenses have been part of primitive telescopes, allowing priest astronomers to track planetary motions with uncanny accuracy? Supporting this idea, several lenses were found in the palace of King Sargon II, alongside cuneiform tablets detailing celestial omens. Yet the mystery deepens when examining the lens's craftsmanship. Crystal quartz is notoriously difficult to shape without modern diamond tools, yet these pieces show no chisel marks, only smooth, uniform curves suggesting they were ground using advanced abrasives. Some researchers propose the Assyrians employed emery powder, a natural aluminum oxide compound found in the region, combined with bow-driven drills. But even this method struggles to explain the lens's optical consistency. Experiments with replica lenses reveal another curious feature. When stacked in specific configurations, they can correct for chromatic aberration, a color distortion problem that plagued European lensmakers until the 18th century. Perhaps the most provocative clue comes from their archaeological context. Several lenses were discovered near intricate ivory carvings featuring microscopic details, lines thinner than a human hair. Under magnification, these carvings reveal precise geometric patterns resembling modern circuit boards. Were the lenses used as primitive microscopes, enabling artisans to work at scales that defy natural human vision? Or did they serve ritual purposes, focusing sunlight during solstice ceremonies to create divine fire? The Nimrod lenses refused to surrender their secrets easily. Unlike later Roman or Chinese lenses, which were clearly documented as reading aids or novelties, these artifacts appear in no known Assyrian texts. Their very existence forces us to reconsider the boundaries of ancient innovation. Were they the product of isolated genius or fragments of a broader technological tradition that vanished? As modern optometrists marvel at their precision, one truth becomes clear. Sometimes history's most profound breakthroughs aren't inventions, but rediscoveries. Imagine a corroded lump of bronze and wood pulled from a shipwreck in 1901, so encrusted with sea life that archaeologists nearly discarded it as marine debris. But when the crust cracked away, the world saw something impossible. An intricate clockwork device with more than 30 interlocking gears, some smaller than a fingernail, arranged in a complex system that wouldn't be matched until the mechanical clocks of the Industrial Revolution. This is the Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek artifact that shouldn't exist, a celestial calculator capable of predicting solar eclipses, tracking the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games, and modeling the erratic motions of planets with staggering accuracy. The genius of this device lies in its differential gearing, a system where one gear's rotation influences another's speed, allowing calculations no single gear could manage alone. Modern engineers didn't reinvent this technology until the 19th century, when it became essential for steam engines and automobiles. Yet here it sits, nestled inside a shoebox-sized contraption built when Rome was still a republic. X-ray scans reveal inscriptions on the mechanism's inner plates, ancient Greek user manuals explaining how to read the positions of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, all displayed on concentric dials like a cosmic dashboard. Who built this marvel? The leading suspect is Archimedes, the legendary mathematician who designed planetariums so advanced, Romans reportedly looted them as war trophies. Cicero wrote of a device recently constructed by our friend Posidonius that replicated celestial motions, a near-perfect description of the Antikythera mechanism. But the real shocker lies in the craftsmanship. The gears display tooth counts based on precise astronomical ratios. For example, a 127-tooth gear that perfectly models the moon's orbit by incorporating the subtle wobble called lunar anomaly. This level of precision implies not just a lone genius, but an entire tradition of mechanical engineering lost to history. The most haunting question isn't how it worked, it's why the knowledge vanished. Roman shipyards built thousands of vessels, yet no other geared devices from this era have ever been found. Some historians blame the collapse of classical academia, where niche technical skills might have been confined to small circles of scholars. Others suggest the mechanism was part of a secretive astrological tradition, its blueprints guarded like sacred texts until the practitioners died out. The darkest theory, that the Antikythera mechanism wasn't unique, that ancient workshops once produced similar devices, all lost to wars, fires, or the simple decay of time. Today, as NASA uses the mechanism's principles to design Mars rover gearboxes, we're left with a humbling realization: technological progress isn't a straight line. Sometimes brilliance flares like a supernova only to fade into darkness, waiting centuries for us to stumble upon it again. The Antikythera mechanism isn't just an artifact, it's a warning. How many other peaks of human ingenuity lie buried, leaving no trace but whispers in crumbling texts? And which of our own modern advancements might someday seem just as mysteriously ahead of their time? Stretching across the Brittany countryside like a giant's game of dominoes, the Carnac Stones stand in eerie silence. 3,000 weathered megaliths arranged in perfect parallel rose over 4 kilometers. Unlike the haphazard dolmens and menhirs found elsewhere in Europe, these stones form a deliberate grid, their alignment so precise that early archaeologists assumed Roman engineers must have placed them. But carbon dating tells a different story. These monoliths were raised over 6,000 years ago, millennia before Rome's founding, by a Neolithic culture that left no written records. What's truly baffling isn't just their scale, it's their subtle conversation with the sky. Walk the length of the Manic alignments at dawn on the summer solstice, and you'll witness something extraordinary. The first rays of sunlight slice between the stones, illuminating a narrow corridor that points directly to the rising sun. Nearby, the Calescan alignment mirrors this phenomenon during the winter solstice, while the Camarillo rose frame the moon's extreme northern standstill, an event that occurs only every 18.6 years. These aren't accidental sightlines. The stone's spacing and angles form a crude but effective astronomical calculator, tracking celestial cycles with a precision that would later inspire Stonehenge's builders. Yet Carnac's true genius lies in its complexity. While most ancient sites focus on single solar or lunar events, Carnac's megaliths seem to map an entire cosmic calendar, their rows intersecting like latitude and longitude lines on some prehistoric star chart. Deciphering this code has proven maddeningly difficult. French archaeologist Alexander Thom spent decades surveying the site, proposing that the stones encoded a sophisticated megalithic yard, a standardized unit of measurement used to calculate astronomical positions. Others, like anthropologist Howard Crowhurst, argue the alignments mirror constellations or even the DNA double helix, though these theories stretch the evidence. The most compelling research comes from archaeoacoustics. When struck, certain stones emit resonant frequencies that may have been used in rituals, turning the entire landscape into a kind of sonic observatory. What's often overlooked is the sheer audacity of the builder's vision. Transporting these stones, some weighing 50 tons, required coordinating hundreds of people across generations, all without the wheel or draft animals. The granite itself tells a story. Geochemical analysis reveals the monoliths were hauled from quarries over 20 kilometers away, their surfaces meticulously shaped to enhance their reflective properties. At sunrise, the tallest stones cast elongated shadows that connect like dotted lines, creating temporary pathways of light and dark. Were these meant to guide processions? Mark burial sites or act as a primitive eclipse predictor, with shadows serving as warning signs when celestial patterns shifted. The most haunting possibility is that Carnac wasn't just an observatory, it was a library. Neolithic cultures relied on oral tradition, but stones endure where words fade. By encoding celestial knowledge in granite, the builders may have created a permanent record of comets, supernova, or even recurring meteor showers. Recent LiDAR scans reveal previously hidden pattern circles and spirals buried beneath the soil, suggesting the visible alignments are just the tip of a much grander design. Standing among the stones today, you're left with an unsettling realization. We're staring at a message in a language we've forgotten. The answers aren't just buried in the earth, they're written in the sky itself, waiting for us to reconnect with the rhythms that guided our ancestors. Until then, Carnac remains a riddle carved in stone, its secrets pulsing with every solstice sunrise. Rising from the turquoise waters of Micronesia like a mirage, Nan Madol is a city that defies logic. 92 artificial islands built atop coral reefs, connected by canals and held together by colossal basalt logs, some weighing over 50 tons. These hexagonal and octagonal columns, stacked like Lincoln logs without mortar, form the walls of temples, tombs, and palaces that have stood for over 1,000 years. But the real mystery isn't just their weight, it's their origin. The nearest basalt quarry lies miles away on the opposite side of Pohnpei Island, across dense jungle and treacherous waterways. No wheels, no pulleys, no evidence of draft animals, just legends whispered for generations about stones that flew through the air to their resting place. How did ancient builders move these monoliths? Modern experiments show that dragging a single basalt column through the jungle would require hundreds of laborers and weeks of effort, yet Nan Madol's construction would have demanded thousands of such feats. Local oral traditions speak of two sorcerer brothers, Olasipa and Olasopa, who summoned a dragon to levitate the stones into place. While dragons might be myth, the underlying idea that some form of advanced technology or forgotten physics was at play lingers in the scientific community. Some researchers propose the use of counterweighted bamboo cranes, though no remnants of such structures have been found. Others point to the region's unique geology. The basalt's natural columnar jointing might have allowed the stones to be rolled like giant barrels, but this doesn't account for the precision of their final placement. The most tantalizing theory involves sound. Across the Pacific, from Stonehenge to the pyramids, there are hints that ancient cultures harnessed acoustic resonance to manipulate stone. In Nan Madol's case, the canals surrounding the city create natural echo chambers. When certain frequencies are produced, the water itself vibrates, potentially reducing friction or even creating temporary buoyancy. Could rhythmic chanting or tuned instruments have allowed the builders to float the stones into position? It's a radical idea, but not without precedent. Modern experiments in acoustic levitation have successfully suspended small objects in midair using sound waves alone. What's often overlooked is the sheer audacity of Nan Madol's design. The city isn't just built on water, it's built with it. Tidal channels were engineered to flow beneath key structures, cooling interiors and flushing waste, while submerged foundations prevent erosion. The basalt logs are arranged in crisscross patterns that distribute weight like modern seismic-resistant architecture, allowing the city to withstand typhoons that would flatten less clever constructions. This isn't just brute force labor, it's hydroengineering and physics applied with startling sophistication. Yet the greatest enigma isn't how Nan Madol was built, it's why it was abandoned. By the time European explorers arrived in the 19th century, the city was already a ghostly ruin, its canals choked with mangrove roots. Local elders spoke of a curse, a divine punishment for the arrogance of its rulers. Archaeologists note more practical clues. Sediment cores reveal rising sea levels and over-harvested resources, a warning etched in coral and soil. Perhaps Nan Madol's true lesson isn't about lost technology, but about the delicate balance between human ambition and nature's limits. Standing on its moss-covered walls today, you can almost hear the echoes of that forgotten knowledge: the splash of paddles, the chant of workers, the groan of stone meeting stone. Whether by dragon's breath or sound waves, by sheer muscle or some principle we've yet to rediscover, Nan Madol remains a testament to the unyielding creativity of the ancient mind. And that's the real magic, not that the stones flew, but that humans dared to make them. In a quiet corner of Baghdad's National Museum sits a cluster of unassuming clay jars, each no larger than a fist, their interiors lined with copper cylinders and iron rods sealed with asphalt. Discovered in 1936 near the ruins of an ancient Parthian village, these artifacts might seem like simple storage vessels at first glance. But when German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig reassembled the fragments, he noticed something extraordinary. Fill one with vinegar or grape juice, and the chemical reaction between the copper and iron produces a measurable electric current, up to 2 volts of steady power. That's enough to light a small LED bulb or deliver a mild shock. Suddenly, these 2,000-year-old jars transform from mundane pottery into something far more provocative: the Baghdad Battery, a device that rewrites our assumptions about when humans first harnessed electricity. The real controversy isn't whether these jars could function as batteries. Replicas have proven they can, but whether they were intentionally designed for that purpose. Skeptics argue the vessels might have been scroll cases, their metal components merely decorative or structural, yet the asphalt sealant tells a different story. This material isn't just adhesive, it's an insulator, preventing accidental discharges while allowing conductive fluids to interact with the metals. Even more telling, similar artifacts found across Mesopotamia consistently follow this same tripartite design: copper, iron, and electrolyte-compatible containers. Coincidence doesn't explain that level of uniformity. So what would an ancient civilization do with electricity? One compelling theory points to electroplating, the process of coating one metal with another using electrical current. Mesopotamian artisans were renowned for gilding silver objects with ultra-thin layers of gold, a technique traditionally assumed to involve mercury amalgams. But experiments show the Baghdad Battery could achieve similar results through electrolysis, depositing gold onto silver surfaces over several hours. Supporting this idea, gilded artifacts from the period show microscopic textures consistent with electrochemical bonding rather than mechanical adhesion. Then there's the medical angle. Ancient Greek and Egyptian texts describe using electric fish like torpedo rays to numb pain or treat headaches, a primitive form of electrotherapy. Could Mesopotamian physicians have replicated this effect with controlled currents from their jars? The Edwin Smith Papyrus, an Egyptian medical text from the same era, details procedures requiring precise cauterization, something achievable with even low-voltage electricity. Intriguingly, some Baghdad Battery replicas produce just enough current to stimulate muscle contractions, hinting at potential therapeutic applications. The most haunting question isn't how they worked, it's why the knowledge vanished. Unlike metallurgy or architecture, electrical experimentation leaves few traces in the archaeological record. If the Parthians or their predecessors truly understood this technology, that wisdom may have been confined to small guilds or temples, lost when empires crumbled. Modern attempts to explore these possibilities hit a frustrating wall. Most alleged batteries were excavated haphazardly in the early 20th century, their original contexts poorly documented. Without clearer evidence, we're left with a tantalizing what if, a glimpse of a parallel technological path that flickered out before it could ignite. Perhaps the real lesson of the Baghdad Battery lies in its simplicity. No wires, no magnets, just clay, metal, and curiosity, proof that groundbreaking innovation doesn't always require complexity. 2 millennia before Volta's famous pile, someone in Mesopotamia might have held the secret to bending invisible forces to their will. Whether they used it to gild jewelry, heal the sick, or simply marvel at the spark of creation, these humble jars remind us that history's most profound discoveries often hide in plain sight, waiting for us to reconnect the circuit. Buried in the rolling hills of Wales, the blue stones of Stonehenge whisper a mystery that defies geography. These dolerite pillars, weighing up to 4 tons each, didn't come from the local chalk downs of Salisbury Plain. They were hauled, floated, or dragged from the Preseli Hills over 140 miles away. That's like transporting a fleet of pickup trucks across mountain ranges and rivers using nothing but Neolithic ingenuity. But here's the twist: glaciers didn't deposit these stones as once theorized. Geochemical fingerprinting proves they were quarried from specific outcrops in Wales, deliberately chosen and extracted by human hands. So why go through such Herculean effort when perfectly good stones lay closer? The answer might lie in the blue stone's otherworldly properties. When struck, they produce a resonant metallic clang, a sound unlike any other local rock. Ancient cultures often attributed magical qualities to sonic anomalies, and Welsh folklore describes the Preseli Hills as a gateway to the underworld. Were these stones believed to carry ancestral power? Recent excavations at the quarries reveal something even more compelling. The blue stones weren't just taken, they were liberated. The quarries show evidence of ritual activity, with carved platforms and tool marks suggesting the stones were pried loose during ceremonial events, as if receiving a blessing before their journey. Then there's the logistics. Moving these monoliths would have required a mix of brute force and brilliant engineering. One theory proposes they were dragged on wooden sledges during winter, sliding over iced pathways to reduce friction. Another suggests they were lashed to log frameworks and floated along rivers like the Avon, then rolled on wooden rollers across land, the most radical hypothesis. That the blue stones weren't moved all at once, but passed along a network of Neolithic communities in a ritual relay, each tribe contributing labor as part of a sacred pilgrimage. But the real enigma isn't just how they moved, it's why they stopped. Stonehenge's early phase, around 3000 BCE, featured only these Welsh stones arranged in concentric circles. Centuries later, the massive Sarsen stones were added, dwarfing the blue stones and relegating them to inner positions. Was this a shift in belief, a conquest that overwrote one cosmology with another, or perhaps the blue stones' original purpose, their sound, their celestial alignments became obsolete as new generations sought grander symbols? Today, as laser scans reveal hidden carvings on the bluestone surfaces, spirals, daggers, and crescent moons, we're left with a haunting realization. These weren't just building materials, they were living artifacts carrying the weight of stories we'll never fully hear. Whether dragged by devotion or glacial chance, their journey echoes a truth about the ancient world. Sometimes the hardest paths were the most sacred. From self-healing Roman concrete to the celestial precision of the Great Pyramid, these 30 ancient marvels force us to confront an uncomfortable truth: history's timeline may be far richer than textbooks suggest. Each structure whispers of knowledge that seems to leapfrog entire eras, as if civilizations rose to technological heights we've only recently rediscovered. Take the vitrified forts of Scotland, where massive stone walls fused together under heat so intense it turned granite to glass, a process modern scientists still can't replicate without industrial furnaces. Or consider the precision of the Moai's eye sockets, carved to hold coral pupils that reflected moonlight in ways we're only now understanding may have served as ancient navigational aids for Polynesian voyagers. What unites these mysteries isn't just their sophistication, it's their stubborn refusal to fit neatly into our linear narrative of human progress. The Nimrod Lenses hint at optics advanced enough to track Jupiter's moons centuries before telescopes. The Baghdad Battery suggests electroplating might have predated Volta by 2 millennia. Even the humble quipu knots of the Inca, once dismissed as simple accounting tools, now reveal mathematical complexity rivaling binary code. These aren't mere anomalies, they're breadcrumbs leading us toward a startling possibility that ancient cultures may have developed technologies along entirely different paths than our own, prioritizing harmony with nature over industrial scale. The most humbling realization: many of these techniques still outperform their modern counterparts. Roman concrete strengthens in seawater while ours crumbles. The polygonal masonry of Sacsayhuamon outlasts earthquake-proof skyscrapers. Even the acoustic properties of the Hypogeum's chambers put our concert halls to shame. Perhaps the real, primitive mindset is our assumption that newer always means better. As we piece together these fragments of lost wisdom, one question lingers like an echo in an ancient corridor. Were these achievements the product of human genius alone, or did they tap into something deeper: forgotten sciences, extraterrestrial contact, or even energies we've yet to rediscover? The truth may lie somewhere between, in a space where mythology and material evidence converge. Your voice belongs in this conversation. Did the builders of Pumapunku possess tools we can't yet imagine? Were the Nazca lines part of a global network of Earth energies? Drop your boldest theories in the comments. The past thrives when we dare to question. And if you've enjoyed this journey through history's hidden chapters, hit subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries that redefine what we thought possible. After all, the most thrilling discoveries aren't just about uncovering the past, they are about recognizing how much we still have left